Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thanks for tuning in to The Fact Is with your host, Hollis Grant. I'd like to start this week off in reference to an episode we did a few weeks ago regarding Marco Muzzo. If you recall, the story is from 2017 where Marco Muzzo was drunk, came back from his trip from Las Vegas, fueled up on cocaine and alcohol and cheap hookers, and drove home and killed innocent people. This is a episode where we talked about how much would it be to buy your freedom. And it turns out that a sizable donation to a hospital is in fact enough to buy your freedom. Complete forgiveness from the state in Canada. So this is a federal charge, so this belongs to the federal government. We're going to take a look in this particular episode of the MP in Vaughan, who is a part of the community and loves to tout his love, deep love of Vaughan. And we're going to take a look at what the family had to say today, February 9th actually. February 9th is when the parole happened. The parole hearing, and Marco Muzzo was granted that. So I am going to start off with the National Post, which is a Canadian national newspaper, and I'm going to read a direct quote from our boy Marco. And here is what he had to say in front of the board earlier today. I quote, "I am not asking for forgiveness, and nor do I ever expect it. I know my reintegration has been slow, and will continue to be slow and steady." And with that, that's what he said to the board. We know what happened. Now I am going to read what the victim said in her speech, Jennifer Neville Lake. And she said, "He scares me. The thought of him being out on the street frightens me greatly. I get panicked and anxious thinking about him. There is absolutely nothing that can be done to spin the death of all my children and my father into something good. The idea that 3 innocent kids have to pay the price for him to learn a common sense lesson about decency, responsibility, and road safety is repugnant." So while I understand, and while anyone else can understand, as I look at this picture of these 3 beautiful children that unfortunately had their life taken from them, is yes, she's going to have anxiety driving around and having to be afraid that the person that did or was responsible for killing your children is out on the roads. But we have to look at this individual. This was in his first dance at the rodeo. And now he's killed 3 children. And then he killed a grandfather. And now he's out on the streets. Now, when she said, "He scares me," remember, those are her feelings. She goes to say, "He scares me." She also goes on to say, "There is absolutely nothing that can be done to spin the death of all my children and my father into something good." But let's go back and read again what Marco had to say in his own words. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, and nor do I ever expect it. I know my reintegration has been slow and will continue to be slow and steady." So he's not asking for forgiveness. He doesn't even care, frankly, if anyone even forgives him. 1, his family has a hospital named after him, and 2, he's out on full parole. He can do whatever he feels like. However, there is a little bit of a caveat to that, and that is the following conditions. Is that he not consume alcohol? Fine. You can smoke marijuana in Canada, and that's fine. It doesn't say anything about illegal drugs, so that's okay. Or go into bars and strip clubs. And that he stay out of Brampton and the regional municipality of York. So he just stays out of there. Well, if he doesn't want to go to strip clubs, that's fine. With the COVID, can't go into strip clubs anyway. And I don't see any exception into escorts. So if you really want to see women dance naked, you can hire an escort, and that could happen. Or you could even try going on the old Tinder. But those are very light conditions, so don't consume alcohol and don't go into bars and strip clubs. So that's all. Stay out of Brampton. If you're not familiar with Brampton, it's a cesspool of crime anyway. And with COVID restrictions, there's no point going there anyway because you can't go into any places. So let's look at the city of Vaughan. Now, this is what is frustrating about this entire situation, is that you have a family that is very wealthy and has paid for a part of a hospital with taxpayers. Again, we looked at this, the amount of taxpayer money that goes into it, and they put a drop in the bucket to have an entire wing named after this family. Now, forever will this family be linked to this hospital, and as generations go by, no one will think twice about it, and it's just a name on there, and there you go. But these 3 young children that will never live, and this poor father that will never see his grandchildren ever grow up, what's the cost of their life? Should politicians change this law? This is a federal issue. Would there not be some good to come out of this disaster? There are a ton of bills and laws that have been put through in America. Whenever there's a tragedy that comes on, there's always some name that goes on. There's even the Breonna Taylor Act that's happened. That's a recent one, Breonna Taylor. Now, why can't Canadian politicians do the same, where they take a tragedy and spin it? So if a family has been convicted of any federal crime, then they forego any naming rights to any stadiums or etc. Now the definition of, well, it's their son, it's not really them. And how long would it go? Because we're going to get to the argument of Black Lives Matter. We're going to discuss right now with Sir John A. Macdonald and everyone wanting to rip his statues down, or throughout the summer of last year of 2020, with all these statues being toppled in the States because of slave owners, etc. The sins of the father wouldn't apply after 200 years, but can an argument be made that if a person is found guilty of a federal crime, that either the parents and their offspring, we can't have any hospital named after them or any type of public building named after them. If they wanted to open their own private hospital and call it the Marco Muso killed 3 innocent children in one grandfather hospital, all are welcome, then by all means name a hospital that. But when you're taking public funds, I think that's not quite on the up and up. In fact, I think maybe a rehab center be built, since the Muso family is in the construction industry. Build a rehab center, called it My Son Marco Muso Killed 3 Beautiful Children in One Grandfather. Rehab center for rich kids. I think that's a wonderful use of the $7 million that they paid to have their son free. But let's take a look about Francesco, my apologies, Sorbara. He's the Member of Parliament for Vaughan Woodbridge. He's an economist by training and a CFA charter holder. He's worked in the global financial markets in Canada and the United States for JP Morgan Chase, Bank of Nova Scotia. He's originally from Prince Rupert, BC, and he earned an honors degree in economics and finance from Simon Fraser University and a Master of Arts in economics from the University of Toronto. Before entering public life, Francesco worked in the private sector for approximately 20 years. A first-generation Canadian, his parents came to Canada from southern Italy 50 years ago, settling in Prince Rupert. His father joined the Carpenters and Sheet Metal Workers Union, and his mother worked in a local cannery as a dietitian's aide, all while raising 3 boys. The values of hard work, family, and a sense of community that his parents brought with them to Canada were instilled in Francesco and his brothers from an early age. The values of hard work, family, and a sense of community. After putting himself through university with a variety of different jobs, including working at a pulp mill and at a grain elevator, Francesco pursued opportunities at J.P. Morgan and the center of the financial world in New York City. J.P. Morgan executives do go on to work for the Federal Reserve. That would be a discussion for another day. The George Bush administration and the Obama administration took on a lot of J.P. Morgan executives. That's, again, I think a discussion that we should have on another day. But he lived and worked in the U.S. for 6 years before returning to Canada, where he met and married his wife, Rose, with whom he is proud to be raising 2 daughters. As dedicated as he has been to his professional life, Francesco has been equally involved in community activities aimed at improving the lives of others. His volunteer work includes contributions to the United Way, EVA's initiatives, and the Inner City Scholarship Fund, as well with organizations such as the Canadian Italian Business Association, the Italian Chamber of Commerce of Ontario, and the Toronto Society of Financial Analysts. Francesco's professional background in finance and economics have provided him with an extensive expertise in financial materials across a broad range of industry sectors, including automotive, media and telecommunications, retail, real estate, energy, infrastructure, and financial services. The knowledge that he has acquired through his work and academic training, coupled with his commitment to community and family, gives Francesco a unique perspective on Parliament Hill. Francesco is constantly motivated by his Vaughan community and continues to work with his colleagues in creating a strong Canadian economy that is resilient and leaves no Canadian behind. I want to touch on a few things here. Now, I am reading this from his website, francescosorbara.libparl.ca/about. We will look at, in his own words or his staffer's own words, that it's his commitment to community and family, that he cares about his Vaughan community and continues to work with his colleagues in creating a strong Canadian economy that leaves no Canadians behind. Again, in the introduction in his site, he talks about his strong family upbringings. So my question to the minister, not a minister at all, just a Liberal MP, not part of any cabinet. So my question to Frank, whose favorite word in Parliament is the word chair. That's the word that's most used. His favorite word is chair. Is with your strong feelings of family, on December 10th, 2020, number 39, Government House Bill, the third reading and adoption of Bill C-7, an act to amend the Criminal Code, medical assistance dying, he voted to agree to it. So he has voted to agree to kill old people because nothing says I love you, Nona, but you really should go kill yourself. Nona, I love you. Nona, we love your tomato sauce. Nona, just die already. Go on, press that button. Inject yourself. Just go to sleep, Nona. You can have all the tomatoes you want in the world. And in fact, you can have a car that's not going to be stolen. You don't have to worry about people stealing your car anymore, Nona. We'll vote yes to allow you to die because I love you. I also love children and family so much that when the Muzo family donated to the hospital, I quote a tweet from October 25th, 2016. Incredibly proud to attend the groundbreaking for the Mackenzie Vaughan Hospital. Congrats to all involved in this historic milestone because one of our donors' kids is going to kill 3 children and a grandfather, and I'm going to vote to kill your Nona. I really wish that politicians, when they say they care about community, would take an actual stand. And I quote Frank, I'm passionate about my Vaughan community, where I live with my family. I'm honored to have the opportunity to once again serve and support all residents of Vaughan Woodbridge. And that was his re-election. So you're so passionate about your community. Not one message about how disappointed you were that the parole board granted full parole for a wealthy Italian family that donated to a hospital where the kid got drunk and killed 4 people. Not one word. So you clearly are not passionate about family or your community, because upon this particular situation, this particular story should have warranted a response from a politician to say, I'm outraged, I am shocked, and I'm hurt, and this stings. This hurts a community, this hurts families, this hurts faith in our system. This doesn't look good. It doesn't look good that this donation was made and the son has full parole. It's a year in prison per kid, per person, less than, because he's already on day parole. Where's the justice in our justice system for victims? Because when it comes to drinking and driving and having money, throw money at the government, because I guarantee you will get off. You will get your parole and you will get to travel. It's okay. Go ahead and kill a family and have a drink. Because the Liberal government could not care less about victims. Our society could not care less about victims. And in fact, we're going to take a look at that situation a little bit more in depth in a later episode when it comes to our most vulnerable in society and how the justice system handles those horrendous crimes. But until then, I'd like to invite you to reach out to good old Frank. You can reach him online. You can see him on Twitter at FSORBARA. That's at FSORBARA on Twitter. Ask him if he really cares about family, if he hasn't made a comment about such a horrible accident that affected all of Ontario in his own backyard. Couldn't be bothered to express his sympathy or his sadness at the lack of justice. Until then, I'd like to say thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week on The Fact Is, and I'm your host, Hollis Grant.